So, call to order. We have quorum. Do we need to vote for that? I always forget. We meet once a month. I'm just so busy. I just came back and there's like a lot of work to do. So, let's review agenda and adopt the agenda. Anybody have any questions, or do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Charles, could we add one item under that 6 unfinished and new business?
Right.
Request for reconsideration process.
Ooh. I'm sorry, Jody, what number will that be?
Under 6.1.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I move we accept the agenda as approved with the addition of 6.1.
Second?
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Have a chance to look at the minutes. Any questions about the minutes from last meeting? And if you have no amendments that we need to put on, I'll pause for a second. If there are no amendments, I was going to say pause for dramatic effect. If there are no amendment to the minutes, can we have a motion to accept the minutes?
I move we accept the
I'll second
wonderful note. They're tremendous.
I'll second it.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Now, moving on to public comments and introduction of visitors. I don't think we have any new visitors here. Were there any public questions?
No, nothing.
So I think we'll just move on to action number 5. Policy review. Internet and wireless acceptable use. I read through that. I had a question, but I didn't mark it.
So,
I was just,
yeah, go ahead, Patrick. Do you want to speak to
Bob was
this?
going to be here to speak to this, but he's not available today. The main thing we did was some copy editing. We added just one item, which is in paragraph 2 in red. We wanted to say something about our Wi-Fi hotspots, that they indeed were covered by this policy and that they meet all the appropriate regulations under the Child Internet Protection Act.
And they do.
Yes.
So would the Wi-Fi hotspot, would they also have the filters
Yes.
already added into it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now if they wanted to request an unfiltering for whatever reason, because I noticed down in the library you can unfilter for them while they're in the library.
Yes.
Can they do that request for the Wi-Fi hotspot too?
That's a great question, hasn't come up, so I'll have to follow up with Bob, find out.
Okay.
I don't think so, because I think it is like one size fits all, that once it leaves here, we can't do anything to it. So I'm going to say that's 99% correct, and then if it's not, I'll let you know.
Okay. The other one question is that, I think in second page, third point down, download or save to hard drive. So they cannot download or save to hard drive on the machine at the library,
Correct,
but can they have a USB drive that downloads
Yes.
it?
Yep.
Okay.
yeah.
Do we have that stipulated, or it doesn't?
But it gets wiped away.
Correct.
Say again?
It gets they can temporarily download something.
Right.
onto the thing,
It gets
but
reset.
Stay there.
Right.
That's why it says not to hard drive. So you think we ought to have something downloaded to save that?
If they want to save anything, it needs to be in a USB drive or their own devices or whatever. Maybe it's already assumed.
Well, I think it's one of those things that Frank talks about with policies, is sometimes that you don't spell out everything.
Right.
Sometimes like, we're going to tell you what you can't do.
You guys figure it out.
And
Right.
in some cases, if it's not on here, then probably you can do it.
Right. No, I agree. I understand that.
And since you're only doing, or I should say 99% is just editing, you left a hyphen between children use for internet. The only thing I found was a hyphen missing, or there was a hyphen in there that shouldn't be,
Okay. And where
between
is that?
the parent.
What page, what paragraph?
Okay, that's under children's use of the internet,
Second
Okay.
page.
and it's the third line up from the bottom of that paragraph.
Okay.
And it's just a little tiny black mark.
Yep,
Okay.
there it is.
All right, you got it, Jody?
Yep, I do.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it a straight period?
No, it looks like a fleck of dirt.
Good eye.
Hey, I had to find something. Come on. I've got a reputation.
You know, this isn't on the topic, but 2 times it was mentioned in here, library rules of conduct. Where are the library rules of conduct for all of our customers?
Well, it's posted in every library, it has to be, and it's in the policies that you approved, or that's the next one you're gonna look at. So there is a, like here at Chan, I think it is on a bulletin board when you walk in. But again, it's a 2-page thing, and it's not something that, it's something more we refer to if someone says, well, I'm allowed to do this. They actually have a code of conduct, here it is, and you have to put on a shirt.
Doesn't come with your new, nothing comes with your new card or when you renew or anything
No,
like that?
no, and that's all about borrowing privileges. The code of conduct is how you behave in this building. And again, that will be coming to you hopefully in May.
Thank you.
It's also always posted, all of our policies are on our website as well.
Any other questions? I guess the only thing that we're going to add is that adjustment to the punctuation. But can we say, can we vote to accept the revised policy, including the punctuation that will be amended? If so, can we have a motion to accept?
I have a motion that we accept the internet and wireless use.
Okay,
And-
can I have a
I'll
with the amended punctuation?
Correct.
Okay, and can we have a
I'll
second?
that.
Can we have all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. State annual report. That was an interesting one actually. I was reading it. Since I went off from the wireless internet policy, I was looking at all the internet stuff in the state wireless report. Anyone have any input to the question?
Well, little things came up, we noticed. We don't have a lot of volunteers, adult volunteers, and that could be a concern for us, how we could generate ideas. But I was wondering, do we ever receive any feedback, ideas, gaps, or thank you very much, well done, or anything once it is sent to the Department of Education?
Jan, I didn't hear all the questions.
She asked if we
Yeah.
ever, oh, no, go ahead, Jan,
You
sorry.
mean once we turn in the report?
Yes, do you ever receive any comments and
They will occasionally ask to look at data, because I actually know something about this job. If we put in a number that's way off from what we had before, they'll come back and go, hey, last year you did 700 of these, and this year you only did 20. Something is wrong, but they don't, this is mainly a statistical report. We don't then mine it and say, oh, other libraries are doing this. It's a chore that we have to do in order to get money. I mean, that's more or less what it is. It's not an information sharing document. That's not how it's used.
It does eventually land at the federal level with
Right.
the Institute of Museum and Library Services as part of their nationwide public survey. But again, it's really just data collection, and you can go in and view that. But
You know, it would feed into the Minnesota Library Association. They would have access to all this data. They may say, oh, look at, we have all this data from all these libraries that says users are up. Therefore, state libraries in the state need more money. And obviously the statistics in here, Jody and before her Heidi have used in their conversations with Nick. So this helps us gather all of our statistics in one place. And then the state will occasionally use it in lobbying efforts, and then as Jody mentioned, it filters up to the federal level.
well, all for a great purpose? You answered my question.
You guys asked something? I was curious, and I think we may have broached this question before last year, and I just noticed it that we had less registered users resident. Like I mean, current year was 40,344, and last year was 40,519. Like, how do you determine that a registered user is dropped off again?
It can be because they go into expiration, the card goes into expiration mode and they haven't renewed their card, or we haven't had that opportunity. Certainly there's cases where there may be a larger amount of fines and someone drops off usage and then their card drops off. About every 5 years we do a greater purge of the system.
Okay.
But that all goes through the county board level for the approval process. So I think, I think we don't see a huge number drop off. I mean, I noted that as well, certainly, but I think there's just kind of general usage numbers that will.
It was
affect
interesting,
that.
like
Yeah.
the registered users drop, even the registered users reciprocal drop a bit, but then you can see your visit exploded. It went up by 50% over or thereabouts, and that was an interesting number for me to see. And then contactless visit went to 0. I guess you all went just no more contactless.
Right, that's coming out of the pandemic and
Right.
some of the curbside service and whatnot. And by next year, we anticipate anything COVID related, like survey questions, we won't see that in the state report by next year. So, and certainly just to speak to, I mean, there are numbers, you can really tell the shift as
Right.
we've recovered coming out of the pandemic, because you just see huge differences.
Yeah, it's like the other one that I saw is that your virtual meeting attendance dropped dramatically also. Like, are you all planning to keep that going, or do you think that's going to be at the point where you go, well, we don't need to do it anymore, kind of a thing?
Like some of the virtual programs.
Right.
I think we intend to keep some level of that going. I think our focus is on in-person, but there's some classes, just as an example, like our jobs and small business classes that we offer through adult services, we've had better attendance online for some of those technology classes. Certainly Paul could speak to our Monday Fun Day virtual program that we do for early literacy and youth that I think we intend to keep going at a particular low level. So we're looking at, and also hybrid models too, like with our author talks with adult services. They're in person, but then we're streaming them live. So those are some of the pieces that we've kind of carried forward with us.
If I may, I know some of the conversations we've had at Mousa level, and Jody, Bob, others are going to have in the future, is what would it look like if every student in the local districts automatically had a library card? And St. Paul had that, I think, 7 years ago. Tenley, from your experience at Minnetonka, do you guys get a library card at some point?
No. I mean, I think at some point, for my IB courses last year, we were required to get one, and then like you would be offered help to get one if you wanted to. But I don't think it was ever just given to us as like for everybody. It was only for like a specific class.
Yeah. I think there's a huge opportunity within our community to introduce them to the library earlier. The downside for me is potential budget issues. If the younger generation is using more e-resources and we've got budget challenges by getting, I mean, that's a real thing. And so that'll be part of the consideration set, but once we got a resident expert here. What might that look like? I know St. Paul has done it when they issue the lunch card.
Mm-hmm.
That lunch card becomes your code for your checkouts. But statewide, I think at the federal level, it's free meals for everybody, and so they might not even have to issue a lunch card. So there's a lot of operational complexities, but if anybody objects or fully supports or has an opinion, I'm curious as we navigate down that path what it might look like, specifically to address the how do we get more people engaged with our libraries.
Like, do you see like elementary school level, or just even?
We'll see how it plays out. One of my dreams is that every fourth grader visits our historic society as a field trip or an experience. So every fourth grader gets that embedded in their head that there's great history here, and what might that look like from a library perspective.
Only other item that I had a question about, curiously, was when you look at the Chanhassen and then Chaska and all the other, their internet performance, internet connections. I thought it was interesting that like, this is Chaska one. I think this cover, the law library, it went from previous year of 20 to 550 megabits to almost a 500 to 1 gigabyte on this page here. Yeah.
Which page?
I don't know, it doesn't have a page number.
Oh, you're right, it doesn't.
It's at the Carver County Library, Law Library.
Okay.
So I looked at that and then I go, okay, well let's look at Chaska, right? Then next one was Chanhassen. Chanhassen kind of went down. It was from a 500 megabit to 1 gigabit last year to 100 to 500 megabit this year, current year. This one here, this is Chanhassen one, right here. Prior year, current year. And I thought, why is that?
I don't know where these numbers come from, Charles. I'm sorry. This is something Bob would have to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can find out, definitely.
I'm just curious,
So,
like-
Yep.
In Chaska, I think no change. It was 100 to 500, maintained 100 to 500.
Yeah, and I assume those are numbers Bob works with
Right.
county IT on, so I certainly, I can find out.
I was
Yeah.
curious, like, I can see, like, I'm thinking, like, technology moving forward, you get more speed, but I didn't expect to get less speed. That was just my thought.
Good
That's all I
question.
had.
No, good question, absolutely, so. Other questions or discussion points?
No, that's all I had.
I just wanted to acknowledge Susan Watts, our administrative assistant, is very integral in just pulling all of our teams together to compile this information. And so she wanted to acknowledge management team and our tech team, as well as our county finance accountant, Diane Rutland. So there's a lot of different people that help to compile all of this information and make sure it's there in time. And I know Susan spends a lot of hours working with the software system to input it. So just wanted to acknowledge that.
No, this is a lot of numbers to put together.
Yes.
If there are, I guess I don't have any, I mean, that's all my questions are. I mean, the numbers are what the numbers are. If there are no objections, can we have motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Oh, we need to get a motion.
Pardon?
A motion and a second, and then we'll move that.
I'll move it.
Okay, and then can I get a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
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 Motion passed. So we have the next item. It's the unfinished and new request reconsideration process.
Yeah, I'm passing around a document now. This is something that Jan asked for, and I was waiting for
Oh,
some
thank you.
information from some of my colleagues in Melsa, which I just got very recently. So I did have a chance to get this to you before your report went out. So the question, we brought up the reconsideration policy, I think last time we met, which is if someone says, I don't want this book to be in the library anymore, they get to fill out a form that says that. That goes to Jody, the director, who says yes or no. And if they say no, the person says, well, I don't agree. I want to appeal. They can appeal to the library board. What we did not have in place was, then what? So I wrote a process for you. If the person doesn't like the decision of the director and it comes to you to appeal it, what should happen? So I'm just going to read through it. There you go. I'm not going to read it to you. The basic idea is this, and you can read it on your own, is before the meeting, you make sure you understand what our core documents are. At the meeting, you let the person talk. I put in here 10 minutes. You might want less. This is just a draft. That's why it says draft at the very top. You have a discussion about the item. Yes, I think, and you might just want to say, well, thank you very much, but I believe that all of the books that we buy are bought by professionals. We're going to keep it. Or you may say immediately, well, I don't think we ought to have a book called Genderqueer. It's one of those challenge books and what I was just dealing with in the library, so I think we ought to get rid of it. Or some of you may say, well, I'm not too sure about this. I want to table this and actually want to read the thing. And then you could table it read it, or watch it if it's a movie, and then bring it up again, and then have an informed conversation about it, saying, yes, I read genderqueer, and it does fit under our collection policy, we're not going to remove it. Or, I don't think it fits, and you guys vote as a whole, we are going to remove it. Because ultimately it's your decision. So this was just walking you through a way of, and I asked, most of my Nelson colleagues, they don't have anything like this. So I had to write a lot of this myself based on what I thought a process might look like. And then there's some discussion questions. If you do come back and decide you want to discuss the item itself, there's 10 possible things that Charles, or whoever's the board president, might want to use to lead the discussion. Doesn't mean you go through all these 10 questions. You know, you might just want to say, okay, let's look at question 6. In what ways does this item support the library's goal to provide resources, etc.? And the board as a whole may discuss that and say, well, this item, genderqueer, does support people's interest in it, supports some people's interest, therefore we're going to keep it. So I think what I'd like to hear happen is for you guys to look this over, provide some feedback. I can do another draft, and then I can bring it back as an actual agenda item next time.
The only question I have is that should the board meet first to discuss prior to meeting with the petitioner?
Here's why I didn't have that in there. And it's really trying to be, that's why I put the tabling option in. And here's why. We don't get a lot, but there could be a lot coming. And that would take up a lot of your time. If every person who begins to challenge something, right now, the people who challenge stuff you haven't heard one, have never come to you. So this is to get you on the very, very back end of it, so you have to deal with as little of this as possible. So that was the idea of even ahead of time, someone challenges genderqueer, then Jody doesn't call up you and go, read genderqueer because someone may complain at the next meeting. One, we only have 2 copies of it, so that would be a problem, but that's beside the point. So that's why I didn't write it that way, Charles. I wanted you guys to only be the court of last resort, and not to make it hard for a person to get here, but to make it very deliberate. They've come to us, they've come to the director said no, they've come to you, you say, okay, yes, I believe everything the library buys. I mean, that was Hugo Black's, the Supreme Court justices. He refused to look at any exhibits when they went to rule on First Amendment issues. He goes, it's covered. I believe everything that the library buys is covered under our policy, or we wouldn't be buying it.
So a different perspective too is if somebody has the opportunity to speak without having pre-meeting, it gives them an unbiased way to present their case.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you doing this because we average about 1 a year, I think 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Over time. A school district averages about 1 or 2. Is in numbers, it's not a big number, but in emotion, it's it's hot, and it'll probably get hotter, I think, and we see ebbs and flows of that. 2 things is I've talked to peers through MELSA and other places, and this might be a discussion point for us, and also too to say what's best practices and share. And thank you for sharing what we have already, because I was out in Surprise, Arizona, and this was a dialogue, and they had no policy. And so we shared the district's policy and what we had as policy to share that information. But 2 things that were of importance that came up, and I don't know if it happens in the upfront or later. One was the question of, do you live in our county? Because there's a lot of people that are challenging these up from outside the county, and it makes it easier for a national organization with, whatever their leanings to just lob them off from a laptop in New York or wherever they're at. So that was one thing. The second thing was a question of, have you read the book? Because if you just grab a page out of context, I'm guessing you can find a lot of stuff you're offended of at this library. I often hear, I think it might even been your quote, if you come into a library and you're not offended, you haven't looked hard enough, right? So, so that's one that plays out. And then the third one is sometimes there's genre level conversations or topics that people want to be able to explore. And so what I've found as a best practice in other places is if you don't like this topic for that conversation, say homelessness. you don't like the way that this author or that author approaches it. Is there anything that you would recommend in that space? So it puts a little bit more onus on somebody that's genuinely maybe concerned about the library versus somebody that's politically motivated, for instance, to put a little bit more onus on, did you read it? Are you from here? And what would you suggest if we want to deliver this topic to our constituents? And I think that the barrier within school is a little different because you're dealing with different aged people. There's an expectation when you walk in these doors that it's available to all. And we have a children's section, and typically children aren't running around this way. But I think you've said before, Patrick, and other people have echoed, if you're an author, you want to be on that banned book list.
Yeah.
Because people are getting interested in the title. So just 3 points of perspective that I've shared or picked up along the way.
I agree with you about have we read the book? I mean, that, to me, that is the most important piece. If the request is to remove the book, that we've all read it. And then I thought mentioning the reviews that libraries use and so on to strengthen its credibility and so on. I think they might come in groups more than individuals in the future.
Yeah, I think that does seems to be what's happening. So there's an organized effort to target at the local level. And again, public libraries have not been on the firing line like school libraries have, for some of the reasons that Commissioner Uderman mentioned. But I want you guys to feel protected. I want you to feel if someone comes and is really, as he said, it's very emotional. It's very emotional that you can say, okay, we hear you. You've had time to express yourself. We're going to vote right now, and what we might vote is we're going to think about it. We're going to actually review the book, and we're going to let you know in a month what we decided. So it's buying you, so you're not caught up in that emotion. It buys you some time to also say to the person, well, I did read it. Well, you didn't even read it. I did read it. I did watch the movie. So, and then one of the questions here, kind of going what Jan was talking about, are the concerns focused on a small portion of the item in the overall item? So someone, like one of the challenges that Jody dealt with was one 10-second scene in a movie that had frontal nudity. That was the only complaint about the whole movie, was there was one scene in it that lasted, because I watched the movie, it was like 10 seconds. So it's like that is not, and that is in our collection policy, basically says that's not grounds to get rid of something. You look at a work as a whole, not 10 seconds of it or 2 pages of it or 1 picture.
So is there a form for them to?
Yeah, you guys improved it last time.
Right.
That's the thing that.
And that forms
Yeah, it's
have the
just-
statement that are they from local? Have they read the material of? Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's great.
So I missed last meeting, but just for clarification, when you say 1 or 2 a year, those have been resolved at the branch manager or director level?
Director
Director
level.
So we
level.
haven't seen any of those?
Right.
Correct,
Okay.
yep. Mhm.
But at the last meeting, Jan says, well, what if we do? What do we, if we see one, what
Yeah,
happens?
that's-
And so that's why I wrote
Good
it.
question.
Well, I
It's
knew
a
you
hot
would
topic.
follow up, but oh my goodness, you put a lot of thought
This is
in
a good
this.
one.
This is remarkable.
Okay, so read it over, because I don't want to, and then at the main meeting, let's put it on the agenda as as an unfinished business. And then maybe the June meeting, you can adopt it as an action item.
I do have one more question.
Yeah, go.
About the amendment is that since our meetings here are public and anybody can come, so if we have a situation where this has to be reviewed by the board,
Mhm.
I don't want it to be a circus. I don't want 50 people coming in here for one cause. I don't know how we can manage that, because if not, emotions are high, like what you said, and then they start, I don't know. it's gonna get weird.
It's you're a public body, it's a public meeting.
I understand that.
Now, the thing you can do is, again, I pulled this out of thin air. At the library board meeting, item 1, the person bringing the challenge may speak for up to 10 minutes. You can say that's too long, because right now, in the public comment section of the library board, we don't have a time limit that I know of. But at school board meetings, I know there's a time limit.
Yep. And then county board, if somebody wants to address the board, they have 5 minutes.
Okay, so
So
maybe
it's not
make this-
unreasonable.
Or
maybe
do we
make
need
this
to
5
update
minutes.
the general policy to say 5 minutes?
Okay, I'll change.
Not
it.
just this policy, but just general policy.
Okay, but no, if someone wants to get rid of genderqueer and they bring their entire organization with them and want to sit in a library board meeting and chant at us, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, go.
Sorry, this might be not a good question, but
No?
kind of along the lines of what Commissioner Adam was saying, would we even hear someone if they don't live here, or if they don't live in Carver County at all? Would we even have them come?
No, and on the actual reconsideration form, it says you get their address or whatever, they have to put their address. So if it was a Carver County, non-Carver County resident, I think the director would write back and say, thank you for your concern, however, you are not a taxpayer of Carver County, we will not take this request further.
Sure. I like that.
But they don't have to have a library card.
No. I think, do we put that in
You
there?
asked if they do, you asked.
We
if-
asked them,
Yes, yeah.
but they're still a tax-paying citizen, so they don't have to have a card, it's still a public building, it's still a public collection. So I think as a citizen, even if they don't have a card, they do get a right on how their tax dollars are spent.
We could go down a rabbit hole, and I think it's roughly 60% of people that utilize this library are from outside the county. So it doesn't automatically shut the door, and it doesn't mean that if you put a policy in play for 5 minutes, you're not going to let somebody speak for more if there's a hot topic. It'd be awful hard to unveil a whole process as to if somebody was truly into it for the right reasons. It'd be hard to make a
Right.
formidable presentation in 5 minutes on the totality of a book. But anyway, those are considerations, and like Patrick said, like it is public, and circus or not, it's one individual that gets the ability to speak, and you would, as the chair, would give the ability to have anybody else speak pro or con.
I mean, we could put a 5-minute policy, but at the time of discussion, they say their presentation is going to be longer than 5 minutes, and if it's reasonable to extend for them, I think there's no reason why we cannot extend it at the time, but as a general rule.
Okay, I'll cut it to 5, that's fine. No, I was looking for some guidance. I mean, as some of you know, I'm also an author, I love editors.
So another question on the 1 or 2 that you get a year, do you meet with the person?
No, it's all done in writing.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then they
Yes,
just
right,
go
so
away
it's going to reach a
if you
form.
deny.
Yeah, I mean, it's offered up
Consideration form.
to speak with them or for them to come to the board, but we have not heard from response from anyone.
And then they give their address, and they're usually within the Carver County region.
So I'm just trying to get, I mean, I think, well, who knows what's going on in this crazy world, but for most people, if they just are listened to and have a voice, so with a director, and they feel like they're being heard, that would probably, like you said, take care of hopefully a chunk of them, if they're just upset about a scene in a movie or something like that.
And that's what the form is for, is
Yeah.
they can say, I object to this, and then the director writes a very respectful letter that says, thank you very much, however, it fits our policies, we're going to keep it. If you don't agree with what I just wrote, you may go to talk to the library board, they're the final decider.
Yeah.
And no one's ever done that. And it's from my colleagues in MELSA, none of them mentioned that anyone had, they're like, we've never dealt with it either.
So just as a sidebar to this,
Yeah.
what this is reminding me of is the diversity study that you did.
Yeah.
Where is that in the process? And
Oh, well, we did the diversity audit for 2 years in a row in the youth materials. Because of that, we wrote a Dalkey grant to amp up even more diversity buying and training for staff.
okay,
And then it got canceled because she couldn't make it, but Sarah and I are having a meeting saying, okay, what can we do with the adult collection? Is what we did with the youth collection the same thing we want to do with the adult collection? And if so, do we want to do with all the collection? Maybe just focus on fiction. And then from that, we'll come up with some findings, and maybe we decide, hey, our collection looks pretty good. Let's try to increase our buying in some areas. So yeah, it's still very much on our radar. At our February training, every librarian is going to be trained on doing what we call reader's advisory. Someone comes in and says, basically, I need a good book to read.
right.
Of making sure we are using diverse selections. That we're not just always falling back on maybe books that we read or have heard about, but rather that our reading interests are wide and varied, and we can say, point out authors that are diverse. And so the librarians are going to have 45 minutes on that. So,
Yeah, well, I think that's a great project, that I could see that sort of maybe triggering something too down the line too, to get.
no, I can see that. But we don't have gladly, we don't have we object to your library practices for them. But there's a way to do that. They don't like how the library is being run. The library director has a boss, and one of them's sitting right here.
Unreasonable fellow.
And so, you know, when I hire new staff, I say, here's the boss. It's called the citizens of Carver County. They're ultimately the bosses. They elect commissioners, commissioners appoint administrators, and administrators appoint library directors.
Yeah. Well, and in some ways, Carver County is almost harder maybe than Hennepin or something, just because, I mean, we're smaller, but we have a lot of different points of view in this county, let me put it that way. I've been on a committee that I know about that, so.
So, Jody, why don't you send this to them?
Sure.
Because you have, change it to 5 minutes, if you could. Then put it on the agenda for May as an official policy item. Then you can have a informed discussion of it, because I just threw this at you. And then if you like it, then come back June as an action item.
And just, I think going
Yeah.
back to what she was asking about, like, you get 1 or 2 a year, have we always rejected, or has any of them been situation where you say, oh yeah, we agree with you, kind of a thing?
Not that I'm aware of, I mean, but,
We had a conversation recently, not about a library item, but a sign that was in a library and where it was located. And we listened to the patron, and they made some good points. It was not. And so, yeah, so that when I say, we didn't acquiesce, we said, yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense, and you just agree.
We'll do it, and did not
Right.
go through all of this.
Okay.
Because this is only for library materials that are purchased, it's not for, it was a sign for an organization.
Well, anything that can be solved should be solved at the lowest possible level without turning it into an issue.
Exactly. Which is why, again, I make it not difficult, but I want to make sure you guys are protected and only come in at the last minute and have a good process that you can follow through.
Thank you. That was interesting. So no actions on that. I think, Jody, you're going to send us the amended one, and then we can revisit it after either May or June's meeting, I think. Next item is administrative reports, budget updates.
so the only, I guess, just update from the last month or two that I had mentioned, are rollovers that we requested into the 2023 budget are now, have now been added, although I don't think on this one that was pulled for the packet, so since that time. So any rollovers that were requested through finance and the board have been added. Otherwise, we're, again, kind of early on, so nothing too major to report on that end.
I just have a question in
Sure.
general, like the fact that we've got inflation kind of heavy last year and this year, how has that affected the library's expenditure? And did we adjust the budget for this year, or are we going to be affected by it?
Well, one thing I think we're looking at is collection.
You're getting killed.
Yeah, for
We
materials.
got no more money. We have no more money coming in, and our buying power has decreased because of inflation, but also the inflation at the book warehouse, the book vendor we use, Brodark. They're having such a hard time hiring people, they've had to raise all their salaries, which meant they've had to raise their prices on all of their library customers. So, yeah, where maybe we could afford, you know, I'm just throwing a number out there, 200,000 books, enough money for 200,000 books. Now it's down to 180,000. And those are all made up numbers. I'm just, you know, yeah, it is substantially. And at the ebook level, you're like, oh, there's one ebook, the new Stephen King ebook, is $150.
You're kidding.
No, that's $150 for one audio ebook. So we had a good conversation. I'm sorry, this is a little off topic. I'm going to go really quick. Where I brought together the 3 people who do the buying of materials that get reserves put on them, because that's something that you brought up before. Why do I have to wait so long? And we said, these are our ratios. We're going to stick to them. It means we're going to buy less non-popular stuff. We're going to put more money in popular stuff. But we're going to draw a line. And we're not going to buy 20 copies of $150
Yeah,
e-audio book.
right.
We're gonna say we're gonna spend no more than $500 on an electronic item, and we're gonna buy no more than 20 copies of a physical item. So, like right now, lesson in chemistry, I think by our formulas, we should have some more copies, but we just can't. We just have to draw the line someplace. That was way off topic, I'm sorry.
No, I understand.
No, so it came about inflation. So yes, there's less collection because the money doesn't go as far.
I was gonna ask how was utilities, but I just realized that in the budget there's no utilities. Is the city paying for it or?
Right, so this,
And utilities is one of the few things that have been jacking up a lot. Like
so
electricity and gas.
that's what we call in-kind donation, or I think that's the language on the state report from our individual cities that oversee our, our building spaces. Yep. But the collection piece with inflation, that would be something we're definitely going to be having conversations about as we look to the 2024 budget and how we best plan for that piece. Yep.
I'm curious if in-kind utility cost goes up, will the city and the county be hard pressed to increase the budget itself? Just a thought.
Is that a question?
Well, it was a rhetorical, maybe, I don't know.
Well, it's just
But I
a
looked at
vicious
you.
cycle of, with every meeting I go into lately, it's just like, everything's going up, can't find people, and, it's just, I don't know.
Next item, library director's report.
Sure, so I included quite a few different updates that you'll see enclosed in the report. So I'll just highlight a couple of things just to tie in to what Patrick was talking, and he mentioned this a bit about working with the staff with diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have an all system-wide goal this year, and I think we spoke to that a little bit last month as well, that all of our staff will be looking at some curated resources and then having opportunities to discuss that and have a conversation with their managers or supervisors, and then at our November all staff we'll have some conversations surrounding that as well. So that's part of their what we call performance evaluation goals this year. Just to note that Carver County's website domain switched over to carvercountymn.gov. And we are not under that domain, so currently we are intending to stay with carverlive.org, but we'll be watching kind of the trends nationwide with other library systems and across the metro with our MELSA partners to see kind of what direction to go with that. But for now, we're staying with our own domain as such. Just a couple other pieces to note. We saw some great circulation increases in the month of March, so that's always wonderful to see, exciting to see. Circulation continues to increase with digital resources up by 25% and physical materials up for the second straight month by 17%, so it's terrific. And then just to note that Chaska, Chanhassen, and Victoria and the law libraries all have charging stations now from the Charles Dalkey grant. And then the Western branches have done some charging cord kits that you can also use in-house. So we're trying to start promoting that just to get the word out about that as well. So a great resource to be able to offer.
You know what I just heard on the radio that,
They're getting hacked.
yes.
I was gonna say that.
But ours are not attached to the network.
Okay.
I did reach out to our tech team today already about that. So
Malware in the
yeah,
plugs
we're gonna,
that-
we'll reconfirm all of this, but ours are essentially just the power source. So we're under the assumption currently that we're good. I know it's very ironic that this all came out at the same time.
Yeah, just I guess two things. Not so much whether they're on the network. If someone can slice the line and put their connector in there as a what they call a man-in-the-middle attack, they can grab everything out. I've seen that.
It's pretty. I mean, like Chaska's is right in front of the service desk.
Right.
So for someone, and you really have to dig in there. So
Okay.
I'm I'm feeling hopeful that that's not going to be the case.
I'm sure most people will appreciate having that available.
Thank you. Yeah, it so happened, I heard it on the news yesterday too. I'm like, what? Just stop. Thanks, Jody. Division director, he's not here.
Correct.
I know that we're having a bunch of interviews tomorrow. Last items, any other questions, or we can go to the next section, which is the trustee and commissioner report.
Can I just ask a general library question? How is the self-renewal and all that going? It's been a couple months now, right?
Yeah.
Or auto
Auto renewal and
yeah.
SMS text messaging. I think auto renewals,
I think
Patrick
it
looks
accounts
like
for
he.
a lot of the increase in circulation.
Oh,
I mean, no, I say that jokingly, but at the same time, it does. I mean,
Yeah.
I know I have one item that has been renewed 3 times. That
Okay.
if we did not have automatic renewal, I would have brought it in. I have had 2 people who want to opt out. It's like, I want to renew my own things. I don't want you to do it for me. So that was interesting. It's like, really? That's what I want to put as my response. Really?
yeah.
And instead you wrote,
They're
you bet.
control.
On the technology side of it, like on our ILS system, things are going smoothly. Like, I don't think we've had any major hiccups with it once it was all set up and good to go. So that was great on Bob's level. SMS text messaging is, I mean, I don't think we have a huge number signed up yet to that, but it's growing, you know, as we continue to promote it and let people know about it. So, yeah.
Well, it's like whenever I go into a website to order something, if I sign up for their text, I get a 20% coupon off something. So now I'm getting all these texts from Chico's.
No, what I do is I set up an email that goes nowhere. And I don't even look
I
at
didn't
it.
think of that, yeah.
And I always use that as kind of like my junk mail
Like
email.
your dummy one.
Yeah. And I don't even look at it. Just get my 20% and then done.
Well, another nice feature of the system I'll just share that I hadn't used before, but I always have a lot of books on hold. So when I was gone, I suspended all of them. But now I'm kind of like, I think I'll use that all the time because then you can kind of stagger when you think you
control
want
it,
them,
yeah.
rather than, you know, come here and I have, you know, I need 2 bags to go on. So that was a nice new feature with the new system that I got to try out.
Good.
I
The
still
one-
don't like that I can't see new books when they're available or how many are on the list. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if it's on order,
Yeah, if it's on order,
you can't see, well, I take that back. You can go into the public catalog, Gwen, and you can find out how many we have on order and how many holds there are, but you can't know where you are on the list. It's
Right.
just it's a flaw in the system.
okay.
It's a known bug. It's
Well, I can live with it, but yeah. I think the old system, though, I could tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Change is hard. Well, anyway, thanks for sharing, letting me share.
Absolutely.
So now we get to the trustee and commissioner report. We have the Chan Hassan and Victoria.
I'll go really quick. Number 1, on the printed report you have, the first 2 pages, or the first page are 2 photos of authors we had for Women's History Month. And they were sponsored by the Friends of the Library. We had a nice turnout for both of those. So I just want to always, and those were also live streamed, so that was brought up earlier, so we're continuing to do that. Second thing is I'm going on the 24th to Victoria City Council with Jody to do our State of the Library presentation for the city. And I'm going to Chan in May, so those are starting. And then I don't have a slide of this because it would be someone sitting in their cube looking at a spreadsheet. The Dalkey grants, some of them had buying materials. So a lot of March, I hired subs who came in and worked for Heather and worked for Sarah and worked for Susan Bernstein so they could buy the materials that go into the health literacy grant, the STEM grant, and the adult language learning grants. So work in that Dalkey is being done, but it's being done using the Dalkey money, allowing staff to get away from the desk by hiring subs. So no picture of Heather looking at a spreadsheet. So those are my 3 things.
You know, when I looked at this, This Carver County Seed Library,
Yeah,
it brings me back to my time when I was in the library reading microfiche.
yeah.
And your Dewey cards in here? Oh man. Next one is Chaska Library.
Sure. So to tie in with Women's History Month, we had some great displays up throughout the month. Now that we finally filled our associate librarian position, she's been really integral in helping to kind of lead the charge on getting book displays up. And she's been starting to she created a calendar in our Microsoft Teams platform so we can kind of see when displays are coming and going. So that's been great. We've had some really busy Saturdays at Chaska, which is so much fun. One of which, of course, was the Friends of the Library book sale. Had a great day, and there was a children's activity that day as well. So it's always great when I'm not there on a Saturday and I get a text message or an email from staff saying, it's busy, it's been great today. So, and they're so positive about it. So, and then yes, the Seed Library, of course, returning to Chaska, but then great to see it entering out into all the other branches as well. We're really excited about that. So.
And when are you going to do that story thing that you walk in the park? When you put the signs?
Those will be coming up probably in all of our community story walks.
Yep.
With
We're doing them, I think, every Thursday at Chan and twice a month at Victoria.
So you just leave it there just for one day, or
For about 3-4 hours.
okay?
Yeah.
On
We have
Thursdays?
a team volunteer at Chan, we have a team, and Victoria, we have a team volunteer who sets it up, monitors it, answers questions, writes down how many people are attending, takes some photos.
Thanks.
So we just got our draft of our summer brochure today to look at, and a lot of the story walks then will be featured in that
Okay.
upcoming programming brochure for the summer.
Thanks.
And Jan, did you have something to add to Chaska's report?
Oh, I thought you'd call on me at the end.
At the end, okay, that's fine. Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Then we have Paul for Norwood Young America, Waconia.
Watertown Library, Friends of the Library, hosting their book sale. It was set up on Thursday afternoon. Their sale will be during their open hours in the library on Friday, Saturday, and Monday. A little bit of a challenge, and it's just there are ups and downs, right? A lot of things. So we weren't able to get a room in City Hall for one of the days. There was a conflict because they had bookings in there already. So we're in the library with it, which reduces the amount of space, but it takes the pressure off the Friends, which is a very, very small group. There's like 4 people in Watertown Friends, for them to have volunteers staffing the sales table. So, but we're optimistic. We have a good supply of books that have been collected, and a high school student is going to join us for setup on Thursday afternoon. We reached out to the National Honor Society, so that's always helpful. So, anyway, book sale up in Watertown. And boy, Patrick and Jody, we're all busy with our State of the Library presentations. I get to do 3 of them. And so the process is for me, is that I prepare one, thinking all 3 branches, but then start plugging in individual content for that particular branch, and then go back and edit it. And you know, there are some things that aren't applicable to all 3, but it will be branch specific. So. And that's okay. So looking forward to those. It was a lot of fun to be at Norwood City Council, Norwood Young America City Council last night. Just a lot of chatter in Waconia, especially about the difficulties with the school budget in Waconia and the cuts that are happening. So I wouldn't even presume to report on what's factual and what's speculation at this point, other than the fact that I think everybody's feeling that there are going to be cuts, and what's that going to do to media, library services in the libraries, and that kind of thing. So worrisome for sure, and we'll try and do what we can to be supportive. And we'll see what next year brings with some of that, but definitely a challenge. Oh yeah, and so then the fun one, the past week that's beginning to percolate just in terms of behavior issues is, all I could think of was the song from when I was in high school, Smoking in the Boys' Room. right? And so that's the recent ditty out at Norwood Young America, is we have somebody, we're not quite sure if he's rolling joints in the conference room, but we're finding, I think the staff described it as organic material on the conference room table. And so it's just never a dull moment, right?
You just can't get a break with the buildings, can
You
you?
know, we do what we can. And, you know, but to take it down to a serious point just for a second, and that is that, you know, having the policies that you all review and refresh as a manager, and then for staff, provide staff instructions on how to handle these things, it certainly is a good feeling that we're not just out there dangling in never land on, okay, well, am I doing the right thing, or am I going to get support on this thing, or am I going to get hammered because I was too rude with some patron? And I said, well, no, we don't smoke in the building here, you know. So thank you all to the board for your review of policies.
Did they catch the individual that painted on the outside of Waconia?
I'm sorry.
Did they catch the individual that painted?
They did right that night, or that next morning. So I'm not involved in any part of that follow-up, but it was my understanding that they pretty quickly were able to apprehend that person. What happens next, I'm not quite sure.
Can you send me the larger picture of the thank you, we appreciate you?
Yeah.
That was cute.
I thought it was great. It's a good visual.
So that was, I'm trying to think, that was the school visits at, I think, Norwood Young America. And Tricia really does a tremendous job, because she's only, I mean, not only, she works half-time at Watertown and half-time at Norwood Young America, right? So she's one building one day and then building another day. And so to weave into that outreach and pulling in contacts with community partners or anything like that is, yeah, so that was especially rewarding for her. Yeah.
Thanks.
I don't know if this goes to Paul or to Alan. The chess club was overfull.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The chess club was overfilled in March.
Yeah, it was really, really nice for me. I was pretty disgusted, and when I left to go to the club that night, I told my wife, I said, nobody's going to show up. Well, all of a sudden, there's a full room, 15 people, and a nice spread of people. There was a senior citizen woman who was really a beginner, and her husband wouldn't play with her, so she came to the club. And there were three father-son couples, and some youngsters, and some really youngsters. And there's a picture of the lady who brings her kids in on this page. And I was really pleased. I'm going to take a survey next month and ask maybe to lower it to starting time of 6 o'clock instead of 6:30, and do some other things. The long-term objective for me has been to have a tournament at Stiftung Fest, and I've got a location in the pavilion now, and the Stiftung Fest committee is happy with me, so I'm pleased about that. I'm contributing. But another piece that just sort of came to mind is I walk around and I make suggestions to these people what to do, and I'm going to come up with a list of what to do. So I'm pleased about the teaching mode for me, and so, yeah.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks, and thank you. The Friends of the Library made $577 in their last book sale. They're going to have another book sale in June the 3rd, which is an event called the Artisan Fair, which artisans come in and make exhibits and booths and car shows there, and a band, and the library is going to be open and selling books.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Alan. Matt, do you have an update?
Yeah, we met with Nelsa last week. It was the full team and the head of the communications group, myself, and got a chance to hear from staff. It's been a rocky 3 years. What they wanted to say, paint vision for the future, which I think the theme for the next year is expanded access. I always thought that meant bringing people to the library, but sometimes it means bringing the library to people. So it's been eye-opening to share best practices. It was lost on me until recently that the turnover on the MELSA board with people in roles like mine has been pretty significant. And so there's a whole lot of people that want to bring a lot of new energy to this board, so it's super exciting, and then the spirit of best practices. And I was bringing up a couple best practices. Say we have a resident author within our team, and they're like, "Is that Patrick? We love that guy." Two of the people did, and so it's kind of cool, unprompted, that people know, and that we have a reputation. And again, I just wanted to echo that it's reverberated throughout MELSA that how we do things here. And so we started by rotating like we do here to different libraries. That wasn't something MELSA did. And so we came here, and then we went to Scott County last time. And so they had a chance to see this. And I guess sometimes we take this for granted. We're coming up on our 20th year anniversary of this place. People walk in and say, "Oh, this is the rich library." And I was like, "Why?" And they're like, "It feels so homey, and it's expansive, and it's nice." And sometimes we forget that it was 20 years ago that this became reality, but it still holds up against all the other ones. And it's the interaction at the front door to help people do what they need to do. So kudos to the people that are here. It gets a little bit more emotional when you're in it a while, and you can get to brag this place up, and everybody else has different problems. So that was some of the topics of when we were together with the MELSA folks.
Thank you. Alan, do you have any more updates for your Library Foundation?
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute, can you wait one more minute?
Yes.
Oh, good, well, I'll make it very good. Is it all right if I?
Are you going already, Matt?
I have a 5:30. Sorry.
Before you go, Matt, I've got a present for you.
Okay.
You might remember last month, you made a remark about
Oh,
elephants.
elephant's rear end.
Got a little elephant for you as a nice remembering.
I think I'm gonna put it right at the DS. It'll be a reminder. Thank you. That's awesome.
That's from Jane.
Oh, were you in DC?
Yes.
I got to go there too. I'm a library holder now, Library of Congress.
Oh, I wanted to show you my card.
Oh yeah, I got it. This is great.
Can you get a card there? Actually, I read it a while back, but I never knew I could get a membership card.
That's great.
So I thought of you, and here's just a little something from the Library of
That's so kind.
Congress.
That's so kind. Did you get a chance to go to the room where you can do Braille?
Pardon me?
They have a room where you can do Braille. You can punch
No.
Braille. And they have 40 volumes of Harry Potter in Braille. Took them 40 volumes to produce in Braille. Yeah, pretty cool. Thank you, Jen.
Oh, you're very welcome.
That's awesome.
Oh,
See ya, Matt.
so slippery.
Gee, I didn't bring
Thank
everybody something from Tucson.
And so the building is beautiful
Put that some candy.
as the Capitol, and you can see just the beauty of it. But you have to have reserved tickets to get in because it's a very busy place during spring
Right.
break.
You can just go upstairs and look at it from outside. That's what I did.
Oh.
Can I play cribbage with these?
Pardon me?
Can I play?
I bet you can. I wish you were in cribbage.
Hey.
We'd come and play with you.
Every day.
We all.
How about 500? Can I play 500 with you?
Sticking on this.
Thank you. I'm pleased about it.
Okay. Oh, and then for Susan. Here it is. Give one to Susan. Okay. Well, I can tell you, it's a beautiful place to visit. And the children were so in awe. I mean, the parents of children and the explanation, they had a docent up there at all times. And you could go downstairs and sit, not ever with the books. The books are underneath and in two buildings close by. But you are just in awe at Thomas Jefferson and what he did. And so his collection is in a certain section. And you've probably all seen it. It was probably the highlight. The second highlight was that we got to meet with Amy Klobuchar. So now that COVID is over, if you are there on a Thursday from 8 to 9, and you have done this all online, identified yourself where you work or something else so that she knows a good deal about you, she treats you to desserts like you can't believe. A table this big, coffee and juice down there, lots of chairs, comfortable. I thought her office was about 3 rooms. And then after we are full up to here with these wonderful spread. We go into another room because there were so many of us, over 50, maybe 70. And she stood with her hands in her pockets and just without any notes, told us everything that she is doing. And then, talk about being personal, her staff had looked over all of us and where we were from and what our issues might be. She called out names and asked just little questions. You know, you didn't want one person to dominate. And there was a judge from Minnesota that was there. I had a grand time.
Yeah. She didn't have hot dish out there, though. Isn't that
Maybe it's not cold enough.
Yeah, that's neat.
It was fabulous.
Yeah, I think you have to write to them ahead of time.
Yes.
And then they'll we did the trip and we went to see the congressman, and then he brought us into the Senate to watch the proceeding, and they were voting on, and the next thing you know, President Obama walks in and like, oh, what the heck?
When did you go?
It was it was Obama's time, so back in the 2015, 2014, we drove there and then we scheduled. The only other place we went was we scheduled to look at the treasury, so how they print money. So they tour you around how they print money. Literally there's someone watching as every dollar goes by. I'm like, are you serious? And we all think, I think he's sleeping. It's like, what? Sorry, so back to you.
Yeah, no problem. Foundation, last report, 331. It was decided to place about $10,000 into the checking account. So the checking account right now is $10,135. And the money market is a total of everything that was in the checking account except for the $10,000 was transferred to the money market. And the total amount in the money market is, I thought I had it circled. Well, it's $112,774.28. So that's the report on the foundation. There's a foundation meeting tomorrow at 2:00 p.m.
Money market is pretty good right now. I think it's running at 4 to 4.5%, depending on where you're at on the interest.
And I have a flyer for you, Charles, just so you might be interested. I know you play chess.
And foundation is Thursday night at 5:30.
The last Thursday night?
Yeah.
Yeah, last Thursday night. You're very welcome to attend. Somebody will challenge you there.
Not that good. Thanks, Alan.
You're welcome.
If there are no, then there's the media package. Do you want to make mention of that? Or?
No comments unless Paul or Patrick have anything you want to.
I'm always glad to see this because I only get the Chaska Herald, so the package lets me see what's happening in Chan and in Norwood, Young America, and Waconia and things like that. So that was always nice to have. That's it. Anybody have any other questions or anything to add? If not, we can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. And
Second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Done. See you guys next month,
Thank you.
where we hope for more warm weather and no surprise snow.
Nice to see you.